Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Intermediate Access. What I've had prepared for us today is I have three tables that I have already set up called condos, customers, and owner data. And what we're going to do is we are going to look at forms, queries, and reports. So if I go back up to condos, you can see that I have that displayed on my screen. I'm just going to come over here to view and to design view so you can see how I set that up. I put in my field names. My unit price is my primary key. I've got bedrooms, bathrooms, number of people that each condo sleeps. Do they provide linens or not, the weekly rate, and the owner code. So the data type for those specifically are for the unit number is just short text, bedrooms, bathrooms, sleeps. The data type is number. Linens, I simply put in a yes, no, which is just a check box. And then weekly rate is currency, and the owner code is short text. So I'm going to go ahead and flip back to my data sheet view. And from this view, you can see that I can continue to add different condos to my table. So I'm just going to go ahead and add maybe unit number 110. Say that it has 4 bedrooms, it sleeps 8 people. Whoops, I'm sorry, doesn't have 8 bathrooms. It has 4 bathrooms, sleeps 8. And right here, here's our checkbox for our yes, no. So if they provide the linens, you can simply put a check mark in there. If they don't, you can go ahead and take it out. Your weekly rate, which I've set up in currency, and then the owner code. Just go ahead and put in a fake one. So I can continue to add all of my units in the table. However, there's a little bit of an easier way. So I'm going to show you how to create a form, and we're going to look at a few different things, a few different ways that you can work with a form. So if I move from my home ribbon over to create, underneath the forms grouping, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to click on form. And when I do that, it gives me, as you can see, it brings over all of the data from condos, but it moves it into a form format. Here at the bottom, it tells me that I have 1 of 9 records, so I can go ahead and click on those and swiftly move through each one of my records. It's a little bit easier to see, a little bit easier on the eye. If I want to add another record, I can simply click on next record, and here I have my blank record. I need to go back to form view in order to fill that in. So you want to make sure that you're not in layout view or design view if you are actually entering data into the form. So if I come up to my unit, I'm going to do unit 111. Tell it how many bedrooms it has, how many bathrooms it has, how many people it sleeps. Again, with the linens, do we provide them or not? Or does the owner provide them or not? And how much it is weekly, and put in my owner code. So that's a little bit easier to go through rather than looking at the tables. Now I've created this form, so the next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and save this. So I'm just going to hover my mouse over condos, and I'm going to right click and left click on save. And it says, okay, what do you want to name this form? So I'm just going to say this is my condos form. Click on OK. And now we have another group. So I have 2 different groups over here. I have created 3 tables and 1 form. So I'm going to go back to the condos table real quickly. Let's say that we want to add another field in here. So if I go up to view into design view, oops, didn't like that. Let's see. go ahead and close this. Now let's go back to condos. Okay, sometimes if you have something open or in the edit mode, that will happen, that it won't allow you to move between screens. So that's what I was dealing with just now for a couple of seconds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another field. And that field is simply going to be just maybe notes. So I'm going to add my field notes, and then I'm going to come over to data type. I'm going to change my data type from short text to long text. I'll go ahead and resave that, because if you don't, when you move from design view to datasheet view, it will give you a warning that you need to save it before you can move on. So now I'll go ahead and go to datasheet view, and you can see that I have notes in here. So I can go ahead and say the owner will allow small dogs. There is a $100 deposit. Okay, so I went ahead and entered that text in there. Now I can't see it very well, so there's some ways that you can adjust your table so that you can see that better. If I come up here and hover my mouse in between notes and a next field that I can add, note that I'll get my double arrows to the east and the west. I can go ahead and pull this out a little bit. In order to see the two sentences that I put in there, or the comments that I put in there, I'd have to pull it out quite a ways. So what I'm going to do, I'll pull it out a little bit, but then I'm going to come down to my row. And again, I get that double arrow, this time to the north and the south. And if I just double click or pull down a little bit, note that it increases the row height, and it adjusts all of the row heights. So everything is the same throughout our table. Okay, so I went ahead and I added that field. Now I'm going to come back down here to my form. And you'll note that it did not add to my form. So I've got a little bit more work to do in order to add that information or that field to my form. So if I go from the form view to the layout view, it gives me three more ribbons: design, arrange, and format. And what I want to do is underneath the tools grouping, I want to click on add existing field. So it comes up and it shows me all of the fields. I can just go ahead, here's notes. I can just go ahead and click and drag and drop that in. And I have now added that field to my form. So if you add any fields within the table, you need to manually go in and add that to your forms. But you can see that it brought over my notes for unit number 102. The owner will allow small dogs. There's a $100 deposit. As I go through, notes has been added to each one of my records. So you only need to do that once. Okay, so let's go back. Let's do that one more time. I'm going to go ahead and save this, and I'm going to go ahead and close it. We'll go back to condos, and I'm going to add one more field in here, and that's going to be, do they have a pool? So if they have a pool, I'm going to use the same approach that I did with my linens. I'm going to come back up here to short text and just tell it that I want a yes, no data type. I'll go ahead and save that. Note that there's a couple of different ways that you can save. I can right click on top of condos and click on save, or I can come up to the upper left hand corner and it will allow me to save. So we'll go ahead and close that up, go back to condos. And now I have pools. So if any one of these units has, or condos has a pool associated with it, you just put a check mark in there, and that represents that that unit has a pool for folks to utilize while they're renting. Okay, so let me go ahead and save this. Let me go ahead and save this. And I'm going to go up and back down to my forms. And again, I added pools, but it did not add to my forms. So I'm going to change my views. I'm going to go to layout view, and I'm going to come up to add existing fields. Underneath add existing fields, I have pool, so I can go ahead and drag and drop that. You can double click on it, but what happens is it inserts it wherever right underneath in the second spot. So you can double click and then you can move it if you want to, but I think it's just as easy to go ahead and drag and drop it exactly where you want it. So I'm going to go ahead and click and hold down on pool. I'm just going to drag it down here underneath notes. And you could rearrange this if you want to. For instance, if I want pool to be above notes or above owner code, note that I've got a little red line there indicating if I let up on my mouse, that's where it's going to drop it. So maybe we want it in between sleeps and linens. So now I have pool in there. I can go ahead and move from my layout view to my form view. And now when I go through, each one of those has the pool options. Okay, so that's just kind of a review on adding fields into your tables and creating a form. Let's go ahead and I'm going to go to customers. Let's open up the customers table. Underneath customers table, you can see that I have each one of them numbered. That is your primary key. And then I have last name, first name, address, city, state, zip, the rental date, whenever they rented the unit, how many days they stayed, the unit number, and the owner code. Now, what I want to add in here is something called mailers. So I'm going to just go ahead and add mailers in there. We'll leave it as a short text. And I'm going to go ahead and save that. Go back up to view and to data sheet. And I now have mailers. So with my customers, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create another new form. So here we have a form for mailers, but we really didn't put anything in mailers. And what I want to do underneath the form is to use some of these controls. So you have a lot of different controls underneath the design ribbon when you go into forms. And the one that I want to look at is called a combo box. So when I click on combo box, it will allow me to come down here and add a combo box. Let me go ahead and let me do that again. I want to show you one more thing. In order to get the pop-up menu that I just got, you need to you need to click on the down arrow and select Use Control Wizards. So now when I click on the combo box and come down, I'm just going to select right above mailers. And it says this just creates a wizard for me. What do I want to do? I want to type in the values myself. So So I'm going to go ahead and click on next. And I'm going to give it 3 values. My first option to select will be no. My second one will be yes, weekly. And the next one will be yes, specials only. So I have 3 different options in there. I'm going to go ahead and click on next. And you want to go ahead and you want to tell it to store that value in what field. So I'm going to select store that value in this field. And then I'm going to click on the down arrow and highlight mailers. Once you've done that, we'll go ahead and click on next. And I'm going to rename my combo box, and we're just going to call this mailers. And we'll go ahead and click on finish. Okay, looks like I've got a little bit of extra stuff in here. We'll go in and clean that up in just a second, but let's switch views. Let's go from a layout view to form view. Just see what we've got here. So that worked pretty nicely. So if they want no mailer, you can select that. If they want a weekly mailer, you can select that. If they want weekly specials, you can select that. Okay, and it looks like I've got a couple of extra boxes in here. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my layout view. I'm just going to get rid of these. By getting rid of those, I'm just going to go ahead and click to select, hit the delete key on my keyboard. Looks like I've got 2 of the mailers in there. So we'll just clean this up a little bit. I'm going to make sure that everything looks okay from the form view. And yes, it does. We'll go ahead and move on to our next person and select whether he or she wants the mailers. So that's how you would use some of those special tools. Okay, so right now our form is kind of blah. Let's look at how we can go in and add some color to it. So if I go back to my layout menu, underneath themes, I can select different themes that they have built in. But what I prefer to do is I prefer to go over to the format ribbon. And this allows me to add some color or spice it up a little bit. So I can do that one at a time. If I select each one of these fields, I can come up here to shape fill and I can select a shape fill. You don't need to do that one at a time, however. If I come over to the selection, you can see that it has last name in there because I have the last name field selected. It has all of my fields in this pull down menu. However, I want to work with all of these at once. So I'm going to go ahead and click on select all. And this will allow me to go in and select maybe just a light color, maybe just a light blue. And then I can come over here and I can change my font color and change that to white. It's a little bit easier to see. I can change my font if I want to. Let's say maybe I'm looking for Times New Roman. Just go ahead, type that in and hit enter. It automatically changes everything to Times New Roman. Now I can come over and I can increase my font size if I want to. There we go. It also has a shape outline. So if you want to spruce it up with a shape outline, you can do that. I just selected yellow. You'll note that when you click on the down arrow, again, you can increase the thickness. You can also select a various line type. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to get back out of the format ribbon. I'm going to go back over to design and to view and to form view just to see what we've got going on here. And to me, that's very hard to look at. So I'm going to go back to view, to layout view, and to format. Let's just make a few other changes. Maybe the line type should be just a plain line and perhaps not quite as thick. Okay, so let's go back to design, back to view and form, and that looks a little bit better. You can play around with the colors. if you would like to. But that's how you would make some customizations with the forms. If you want to add pictures, I'm going to go ahead and go back to the layout and back to format. You can insert a background images if you want to. You can also go to design or just double click where next to customers and tell it that you want to insert a logo. And I have on my desktop, there we go, Access Pics. And I just have a condo here that I downloaded. So you can see that I just kind of spruced that up a little bit with a picture of a condo on my customer's form. Okay, so let's go back to view and to form view. And there we have it. Now, the one thing that I haven't done is I haven't saved this form for customers. So I'm going to go ahead and right click and tell it that I want to save that. Put in customers form and click on OK. All right. So we have a couple of forms. So let's go ahead. Let's go back to condos. Well, let me show you owner data for just a second. This is what this entails. It is simply, if I go to design view, you've got your owner code, last name, first name, city, street, state, postal code, and basic information. Okay, let's say I'm going to go back for a second to my data sheet. Perhaps I want to put in here if they may have a website. So if they have a website, I can come over to design view and I can add that to my fields. So we'll just come up here, say website. And underneath data type, I am going to select a hyperlink. So when I select the hyperlink, I'm going to go ahead and save this, change my views back to datasheet view. I now have a place to enter a website. So let's see, Abby Bart, we'll just say www.abbybartcondos.com. Okay, now I just made that up. I highly doubt that that is an actual website, but you can see that because I selected the hyperlink, it automatically formatted it so that if someone's in this table or in a form, that if I hover my mouse over it, it allows me to click and access that website. So easy access to that information. Let's go ahead and go back over to create, and we'll create a form for the owner data. So you can see that all of that is here. All of my 5 owners are present and accounted for. I only had the one website. So now I have a form for all 3 of my tables. I have 3 forms that I've created. So let's go ahead and save that. So we'll just call that owner form and click on OK. All right, so I'm just going to close some of this up before we continue on. Yes, I want to save it. Like I said, Acces is all about saving. It doesn't want you to do anything without saving. So that's a little bit about forms, adding some different fields in, adding fields in from the forms and formatting those within the forms ribbons. All right, so let's go back over here to create for a second. And from create, I'm going to go to query design. And what a query design does is it allows you to pull specific data from one or multiple tables that you've created within your Acces database. So I'm just going to go ahead and add in condos to my query. And you can do that in one of 2 ways. I can double click on condos, or I can come down here and click on add. I'll just go ahead and click on add. That's the only one I want to deal with right now. So I'll just go ahead and click on close. I can click on the X or click on close. And here in this box that it has provided for me within the query, it gives me the information for condos. Now I can't see all of that. What I like to do is I like to come in and adjust that. So if I hover my mouse over the bottom of that box, I get that double arrow. I can go ahead and click and drag down. Now I can see all of my fields. So I can go in and I can create several different, I can access several different questions. Let's say that I want to know which unit. I want to include the unit number. So if I double click on it, note that down here, it went ahead and it put in the field unit number, and the table it came from is condos. So you can double click from this list, or you can come down and you can say, maybe I want to know which one of, oops, I want condos, but I want to know which one of the condos has a pool. Okay, so I only have one table to grab information from. That's the only one that I selected. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ask Acces to show me which one of the condos has a pool. When I'm done asking questions, I can just come up here and click on Run, and you can see that it gives me all of the units, and it just which ones have it includes every one of my units, but this is a little bit of an easier way to look at it, especially if you have a lot of data. I just put in a little bit of data so that we could work on this today. Once you have that query, we can go ahead and right click and save it. And this query I'm going to call condos with pools. So I'll go ahead and click on OK, and note that over here to the left, now I have a grouping for tables, I have a grouping for queries, and I have a grouping for forms. Okay, so let's go back up to create and to query design. And this time we're going to ask specific questions of just the customers. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select customers, click on add, go ahead and close up this window. And now we can create a query just for our customers. So perhaps we want to create a query that gives the name and address of those people that want a mailer. So I can go ahead and I can double click on last name, first name. Note that it's adding this information down here for me: address, city, state, zip, and mailers. Okay, so I've got that information. I'm just going to come up here and I'm going to click on Run. And when I do so, it shows me my 5 customers and those folks that the listing for mailers. So it excludes when they've rented the information or the condos, how many days they've rented it for, etc. This query simply gives me those people that and what they specified for the mailers. So I can go ahead and save that, and we'll just call that customer mailers, and click on OK. So now I have a second query in there. We'll go ahead and close this query. Don't need that up. So let's go back to create and to query design. This time we're going to work with 2 of our tables. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add in condos and I'm going to add in customers. we'll go ahead and click on close, and I want to make sure everybody can see all the fields, so we'll pull that out a little bit. This time it looks a little bit different because we have two of our different tables up, but it also shows us a connection between the two. So it's telling me that unit number, the field unit number, is not only in condos, but it's also in customers. So we can go ahead and we can create a query, and you can move these around. You don't have to have them in the order that Acces puts them in. So let's say that we want to create a query asking the first name and last name of our customers and their rental days, the owner code that they rented from, and then we'll go ahead and insert maybe notes as well. Okay, so that was a question that we're asking Acces to pull that data from. So I have last name from customers, first name from customers, the number of days that they have rented a condo from customers, the owner code from customers, and the notes from condos. So I'm going to go ahead and click on run, and it will give me all of this data, so you can see that here are my 5 customers, how many days they have rented it for, what's the owner code. So it looks like GH55 has had 2 rentals from these 5 customers, and the 2 notes. Oh, AB17 has as well with those notes. So I can go ahead and just save this query. And click on OK. All right, so now I have 3 different queries over here. I have 2 queries that I created from just the condos table, one from just the customers table, and one from the condos and the customers table. So let's go ahead back up here to create and to query design. And this time we'll go ahead and add in all 3. Go ahead and close that. Let's make sure that we can see all of these. Now you can see that there is some correlation between the fields in these 3 tables. I'm just going to move them around so that it's a little bit easier to see. So customers and condos has the unit number, and condos and owner data has the owner code. So if we want to, we can come up here and say, okay, let's go ahead and ask the query. The owners want to know who has rented from them. So we'll go ahead and we'll grab the customer's last name, the customer's first name. Maybe they want to contact them. So we'll include their address, their city, their state, and their zip. And then we'll add in the unit number of the condo that they rented, because some of these owners have multiple condos. So we'll go ahead and include the unit number, and then underneath owner data, we'll go ahead and grab their code, their last name, and their first name. Okay, so I'm asking a lot of questions here. From customers, I'm asking it to grab the data last name, first name, address, city, state, zip. From condos, I just want the unit number, so we're only taking 1 field from condos. From owner data, I have the owner code, the last name, and the first name. So now I'm going to come up here and I'm going to click on run, and you can see that it gives me all of my customers, their addresses, the unit that they rented, the owner code, and the person that they rented from. So that, we'll go ahead and save that query. We're going to save that query as rental info for owners. Okay, so I've got my 4 queries in there. I'm going to come up maybe to customers, and I'll go to the customers form. And let's say that we had a new customer. So I can add in a new customer by clicking through, and we only have 5 different customers. But if you would just want to go in and add a new blank record, down here at the bottom, you have arrows that will allow you to move from one record to another, to the end of your records, to the beginning of your records, or to indicate that you want a new blank record. So I can go ahead and click on that. Okay, so last name, just put in Smith, Don, put in an address. Rental date. Note when I click on rental date, it brings up a little calendar over here. So I can go ahead and click on that calendar, and I can say that maybe they reserved beginning August 3rd. It automatically pops that in. Number of days, we'll say 5. The unit number, they're going to rent 108. $55, and do they want mailers? Yes, weekly. Okay, so I just added in a new customer with my mailers. So this customer's name is Don Smith. Now I'm going to come back over to my queries, and I'm just going to look at mailers. So when I look at mailers, it does not include that last person that I put in there. So we need to go in, we need to update this particular query. I just saw it, and now I can't find it. Where did you go? Oh, there we go. If you just click on refresh. Okay, well, let me move on to something else. We'll come back to that because I'm sure that I will see it here in just a little bit. Let me close up that query that I went on to, and let's move on to reports. So now that I have all of these queries, what I can do with them is I can create reports out of them. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close some of this up. Go ahead and save that. Okay, so let's go to condos with pools. I'm going to go ahead and select that query. I'm going to come back over here to create. Underneath reports, I'm going to go ahead and click on reports, and it gives me just a nice looking little report here that I can print off, or that I can utilize in maybe PowerPoint if I want to. I went into layout view because I noticed that I don't need that particular field. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. I'm going to go back up to view and to reports. And the same way that you can manipulate a form, you can also manipulate a report. So if I want to come over here to format and make this look a little bit snazzier, again, I can click on select all, and I can change the fill. So just put in a real nice light color, maybe just a light gray, and then change my font. Look for something fun, maybe to Bookman old style. I can select a font size. I can select a outline, maybe increase the thickness a little bit. It might be a little bit too much. Let's come back over here to design and see what we've got. Go to report view. And yeah, to me, that's a little bit too much. So I'm going to come back over to layout and to format. And we'll just go to shape outline, and we'll reduce that thickness a little bit. All right, now let's see what we've got. Yeah, so that's a nice little report. When you update the report, or when you create the report, it tells me that it is Friday, July 17th, 2020, 11:42 in the morning. If I go back to layout review, you can, I automatically added the date and time in there. You can click on that. You can change the format if you want to. So if you only want it to say, 11:43 or 11:43 without the AM or PM. As I'm clicking, note that down below it gives you a sample. This is what it's going to look like. I like having the date included. If you don't want the date, you can take the check mark out, click on OK, and this form already had it, but on other reports, it would go ahead and take that out for you. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and add a logo. Again, I'm going to go ahead and click on condos, grab that graphic. I can pull that out a little bit. I can make it a little bit bigger if I want to. And looks like we need to pull these in just a tad bit. So if you do want to make your report smaller, by selecting any one of these, it will select the majority of them. I can go ahead and hover my mouse and pull in a little bit, just so that if your report is very long, oops, didn't mean to do that. If your report is very long and it's going to print on more than one page, you can adjust those fields by clicking and then getting your arrow to the east and the west, and just pulling in or pulling out, whichever way you want to, depending on what you're looking for. So when I go back to report view, this is what we have for the report for condos with pools. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Click on OK. And now I have 4 groups over here. I have tables, queries, forms, and reports. Let's go over and look at maybe the query owner with notes. And I'm going to go up to create. We'll create a form out of that, or a report, excuse me. So you can see that this particular report goes on to 2 pages. However, we've got a lot of space in here that we don't necessarily need. So let's make some adjustments to that. I can reduce the size of the field last name. I can reduce the size of the field first name. The number of days can be reduced as well. The unit that they rented or the owner code can be reduced. And now I'm to 1 page. Now, if you want your comments or your notes to only be on 1 line, I can go ahead and pull this out because we've got a little bit of extra room, and that will reduce some of your printing as well. And we can clean this up a little bit. And there's a nice looking report that, again, you can print or you can move to PowerPoint if you want to. So this is just owners with notes. If you want to go in and format it, we can come over here to the format ribbon. Same. I can do a fill if I want to. So you want to put in maybe just a real light blue. Or if you want to emphasize something, go ahead and take that out. If you want to emphasize the notes, maybe you just want to fill in the notes because those are so important to, oops, we'll go ahead and make that maybe a little bit lighter shade of red, change the font to white, and we'll come back to design, end of view, and report view. And there you have a nice little report concerning the owners with notes. So we'll go ahead and save that. And we'll click on OK. And there we have another one of our reports. Let's go and do one more. So let's do rental info with owners. And now that I have that query selected, I'm going to come up to create, and we'll go over to report. And again, this gives us a lot of pages, so I can make some adjustments to it. Pull this in. Just going to adjust each one of these fields. We've almost got it on 1 page. It looks like we can maybe come over here and reduce this a little bit. There we go. So now we have this entire report on 1 page, and that report is the rental info for the owners. So when you send that out, it can all be on 1 page when you share that information with them. So we'll go ahead and right click and save this. Just say that this is a report and click on OK. All right, so let's come up to queries again, and this time I'm going to come over to create, and let's look at some of the other options for creating either there's wizards here that you can utilize that we haven't looked at, and I want to go ahead and look at those before we end our session today. So let's go in and look at the query wizard first. I'm going to go ahead and close all of these up. And we'll just select condos. We'll go to query wizard. When you click on query wizard, what it does is it asks you what type of query you want to create. So we're going to go ahead and just do a simple query wizard. Click on OK. And because I had condos selected, what it does is it gives me all of the available fields in the table condos. Now, if I want to grab data from customers or owner data, I can click on the down arrow and it will allow me to select those. So just because I've got one selected does not mean that I can't pull information from the others. So let's just say that I want, from this one, I want the unit number, I want the bedrooms, the bathrooms, and the weekly rate, and the owner code. Okay, so I'm just going to use one table for this query. I'm going to go ahead and click on next. And it says, okay, what do you want to show? If you want details, this will show every field in the record. We do want that, so I'm going to go ahead and click on next. It says, what title do you want for this condos query? That's just fine. So we'll go ahead and click on finish. And here it gives me the information from that query. So I have another query. I just went about it a little bit different way. I used the query wizard as opposed to the query design. So we'll go ahead and save this one and close it up. Let's go back up to query wizard again. We'll go ahead and select simple again. This time we're going to select data from maybe the customers. So we're going to grab the customers, and you can move available fields to selected fields in a couple of different ways. You can double click on them, or you can select it and click on the arrow. If you want all of them, you can click on the double arrow to bring everything over. To bring them back, you can bring them all back at once, or you can bring them back one at a time. So when you're working through this, if you decide that you don't want a field over there, you can very easily move them back and forth. So I'm going to select last name, first name. These are our customers, and their rental dates. Okay, then I'm going to switch, and I'm going to go to owner data. And in owner data, I'm going to select their last name, their first name, and maybe their website. Okay, so that's just using the query wizard. I'm going to go ahead and click on. Oh, okay. I was grabbing information that didn't have a relationship, so it did not like that. We'll go ahead and let's see, we've only got 7 minutes left. I want to make sure that I show you the other two wizards. So that's the query wizard, and that was my fault. I didn't have a relationship between the two tables that I was using, and by the relationship, when we went into queries and selected these, if there's not a line between two of them, then you're not going to be able to pull information. So no, we don't want to save that. Let's go back up here to condos and to create, and let's go to the form wizard. So you can see that this looks very similar. It depends on whatever you want to do, however you want to create this. So if I want a form that combines some different information, let's say that I want to create a form out of one of my queries. So I can just say that I want a query with owners with notes, or I want a form. You can go ahead and click on next. Oops, you pull that over there. Click on next. And then it asks me, what type of a form do you want? And when I go through these 4 options, it gives you what the form's going to look like. So I'm going to just go ahead and maybe select column, click on next, and we'll click on finish. And here are our forms, but this time we used the form wizard. Same thing with the report wizard. I can go ahead and select any one of my queries. So maybe I want rental information. I want all of it. We'll go ahead and click on next. This is going to be quite a bit. We'll click on next. It asks if we want to sort the records. We can just say in go customers, owner data. That's good enough. We'll go ahead and click on next and click on next and finish that up. And here is the report that we created with our wizard. Okay, so that in a nutshell, that is how to go in and create tables, how to update tables, how to create forms, how to update the forms, update the fields from the forms. We created several different queries, and we looked at the reports, creating them the manual way and using some of the wizards. Thank you for joining me today. It's been a pleasure. We hope to see you soon in another webinar sponsored by the DoSpace. Thanks, everybody.